All right, thanks for tuning in. I'm Dave, and I am the Radical Independent, feeling a little bit isolated, feeling a little discouraged today. I'm a big Tulsi Gabbard fan, as you know, and I am actively promoting her campaign because I believe she is the unity candidate. She is the candidate of common sense. She's not for destroying the country with an impeachment proceeding, which will likely make Donald Trump a stronger candidate going into 2020. Someone's going to have to tell me how trying to impeach Donald Trump is going to make Donald Trump weaker, and how his base is suddenly just going to go away and not be more energized. Anyway, those are all issues that are important. I think Tulsi Gabbard has a great opportunity to unify the country. And recently, Tulsi Gabbard has done something which I think may have gotten under the skin of a few Bernie people. All right? And this is a theory. By the way, Bernie people, I'm still willing to vote for Bernie Sanders. If it's Bernie Sanders against Donald Trump, I'm voting for Bernie Sanders. It would be a great opportunity to vote for Bernie, although I am worried about Bernie, especially when it comes to standing up to the military-industrial complex, and that's a big issue for me. Foreign policy is a huge issue for me, and will he begin to compromise and cave to all the things he's been running on for so long? It's really a big wait and see. I'm also concerned that he's signed on to the Russian collusion hoax, which it is. Just talked to Aaron Matei about that. There are all kinds of great articles out there about this. If you're a tribalist and you believe the most important thing is defeating Donald Trump, Bernie Sanders is kind of going after some of that audience. And it's not working because Elizabeth Warren is getting a huge chunk of it. So here comes Tulsi Gabbard. She makes the debate, and all of a sudden now, her Medicare for All stance is the subject of scrutiny over on the cesspool called Twitter. All right? Now, I don't mind debating somebody on this issue, but if you're telling me that Bernie Sanders is going to successfully shut down all private insurance, I would be very skeptical of that. But just for clarity, before we launch into my opinion on this and why I think Tulsi's position is fine, this is what Tulsi had to say to somebody who asked a decent question at one of the early CNN town hall events where Tulsi did a great job.
I support Medicare for all, and I want to tell you why.
Okay, did you hear what she said? Just clear, simple language. I support Medicare for all, and I want to tell you why. This is what she says up here. Now, this video doesn't really address the private insurance issue, but there is one sentence at the end of her platform. Let's let this roll, and then I'll come back to the sentence, and then I'll talk to you about why mandating somebody do something here in the United States is probably a crappy idea. It depends on what it is, though. Okay, if it's a bank telling a bank that they can't rip people off, I'm good with that. All right, let's roll this a little bit.
It is unacceptable that in our country we pay far more for healthcare than any other country in the world, yet we have far worse outcomes. It's unacceptable for anyone to be sick and in need of care and not able to get that care simply because they don't have enough money. Medicare for All would take out that insurance company that we are writing a big check to every month by taking out that bloated administrative fees and the heavy profits that insurance companies are making on the backs of sick people in this country, and instead write that check for Medicare for All, where we would have that coverage for everyone. There's a lot of things that we have to look at what are driving the high cost of healthcare. So on its own, Medicare for All is not going to solve everything.
Okay, so at the end here, she says it's not going to solve everything. You got to negotiate drug prices because, again, Are we eliminating pharmaceutical companies? Is this going to eliminate pharmaceutical companies? No, it isn't. It's going to try to eliminate a lot of private health insurance, or their market is going to be very reduced, and it probably will put a number of those companies out of business. I don't have a problem with that. I do have a problem with saying that you can't, if you want to, buy your own supplemental policy. It just doesn't, it makes no sense. People buy supplemental stuff all the time. People do it, I think, currently with the current version of Medicare for older folks. So I don't understand where the controversy is here. This is the big sentence, though, that the Twitter gang has started to pile onto. If you look at other countries in the world who have universal health care, every one of them has some form of a role for private insurance. And she has a link to it. Now, I didn't click on this link, but I'm pretty sure that she wouldn't have posted a link if this wasn't true. Now, is this a nod? Is this like a wink and a nod to private health insurance to say, hey, don't worry, I'm just talking about this during the primary. You guys are okay. No, this isn't, because right there she talks about why she's for Medicare for all. I'm going to use a real tortured analogy here. You probably won't agree with this, but I'm not really a big abortion person. Okay, my faith and a lot of other things have influenced me in this area, but I recently came to the conclusion that if we try to outlaw abortion, which is happening all across the country, and it's happening more and more, and for people who are pro-choice, this is very alarming for them. You notice how I said pro-choice? You take away someone's choice, and they're going to find a way around your roadblock. Now, in certain circumstances, like I said, if a bank comes along and is doing predatory lending, all right, and they're lending money at ridiculous rates, and people are forced to pay these rates, and they've got no alternative, that's when the law comes in and says, nope, you can't do this anymore. 100% it gets shut down. Does the bank get shut down? Probably not, but their policy gets shut down, and they're required to probably lend people money at a decent interest rate. And guess who gets to decide that? You and I. It's our choice. So I know the abortion thing is a little, it's a little tortured as far as an analogy goes, but as much as I don't like it, as far as it's part of human nature to say, you know what, I don't want this, and someone's going to tell me I have to have this baby and so forth. So even though the law tells me that I can't do it, hypothetically, I'm going to go find a way. And that could be very dangerous in that case. That could be, life-threatening. And I know for folks that are, against abortion completely, that it's already life-threatening. But my point is, if you tell somebody that they can't do something, they're going to get rattled. The same way that if you tell somebody, for instance, well, you have to pay into this healthcare plan, and then you can't even qualify for it. You know what I mean? There's so many different things right now, especially with Obamacare still out there in some mutated form, not really doing anything for anybody. I mean, again, I worked a call center that actually took calls for the Affordable Care Act, and you have to be in this financial sweet spot in order to get all the subsidies. And by the way, the subsidies are all basically designed so insurance companies, again, can charge more money because they know the government is going to write them a check rather than keeping costs down, which Tulsi Gabbard talks about here. Healthcare is pretty complicated and doesn't have to be necessarily, but it is. And, for you Bernie folks to come along and say, well, she's not really for Medicare for all. No, she kind of is for Medicare for all. She's not Medicare for some, or the other programs which are Medicare for all who want it. That's something, Mayor Pete talks about all the time. No, Tulsi Gabbard says Medicare for all. Now, if you're a purist and you think, okay, Bernie's proposal is the only one that's legitimate, if Bernie got legislation passed where people, if they wanted to, could still buy private insurance, but yet everybody in the country was covered, okay? Everybody who couldn't afford health care was covered, and it was comprehensive, and it wasn't piecemeal, and you didn't have to jump through hoops, and if you had a pre-existing condition, you were still okay. What more can you ask for? What else? See, and this is the I'm trying to out-progressive you routine that I've been seeing since I kind of jumped over here, and I became more progressive with my belief system. Doesn't mean I'm completely progressive, by the way. It just means that I understand that the common sort of workaday Americans are often left behind by the system right now. And Bernie and Tulsi, and that's kind of it within the Democratic primary. Elizabeth Warren is not going to be a champion for the middle class. I mean, I would probably put Bernie at the top of the list in a sense because he talks about economic issues, and Medicare for All is one of those issues, but it's disingenuous to tell me that Tulsi Gabbard somehow isn't all in for this, because there's one line that says, hey, in other countries, they do have private insurance. It still exists. Bernie Sanders says, yes, you can get plastic surgery, but that's about it. So, but that's still saying that you can get some form of private health care that's out there. And it's would be the same as telling people, hey, you can't send your kid to a private college. Even if you got the money, you can't do it. You can't do it. That would be asinine. That would be, again, we're going too far in our quest to be like progressive purists. We're like throwing the baby out with the bathwater. We're not considering all of these different circumstances. And then we're just leveling attacks that are baseless. Okay? They're baseless. Now, again, I'm going to reiterate this, that this seemed to kick in right after Tulsi Gabbard qualified for the latest debate. And my hunch is that Bernie supporters are getting a little nervous with Bernie getting really hit hard by this Warren surge, which you Google Elizabeth Warren right now, it's like Googling, free gold bars. There's just going to be article after article popping up about how great Elizabeth Warren is, how energetic she is, what a insurgent campaign she has. So I think the Bernie people right now are feeling, I think they're feeling like crap. And taking it out on Tulsi Gabbard, though, is a lousy idea. Because who's going to be there for Bernie at the end of this if Bernie is still standing? Tulsi Gabbard. And I would hope that if Tulsi Gabbard were that person still standing, Bernie would be there for her. But I don't know any... I don't have any confidence anymore in who's going to be standing up for who at this point. But I think Tulsi Gabbard is fairly loyal and would do the right thing. Unfortunately, she said she would support the eventual Democratic nominee. And by the way, burners, she's already, and this is a video I did yesterday, Tulsi Gabbard has already said that she's basically going to go after Elizabeth Warren if she has an opportunity. So the DNC, they're going to keep those two people very far apart. I'm wondering if they'll even be on the stage at the same time, based on Tulsi's interview with Crystal Ball over on the Hill. It's just going to be interesting, and could be the best thing. Could be setting a pick for Bernie Sanders, and Bernie Sanders is back on the trail, and he'd have Tulsi Gabbard to thank for that. So I think it's really, I don't want to say disingenuous, but it's very non-productive at this stage in the race to start nitpicking Tulsi Gabbard on Medicare for All, especially when she cites something that's true, and she basically lays out all of the big talking points that Bernie Sanders has, but Tulsi does it in a different way. Tulsi does it in almost a nonpartisan way, where she's trying to explain how people don't have money for health care and how we need coverage and we need to bring that money back. Okay, from where? From our needless, ongoing, never-ending interventions that show no signs of stopping. And she's the best candidate on this. This would be akin to the Bernie people going after Tulsi Gabbard because she is anti-war, and they would say, well, in some of those places where, the military-industrial complex has, Raytheon or Northrop Grumman or whatever it is, that Tulsi doesn't understand that, those people really, they benefit from those organizations and those companies. So she can't be so, robust on this. She needs to tone it down a little bit, because Bernie Sanders, he's hinted that there's a couple of dictators that he doesn't agree with, and he'd have to sit down with generals and have a chat with. Whereas Tulsi Gabbard, nope, hands off Venezuela. I mean, that's a Green Party position, and there's nobody else really doing that right now. Only Tulsi Gabbard. So, Bernie supporters, you'd probably be better served focusing on the good stuff that your candidate is presenting, not picking a food fight with Tulsi and Tulsi Gabbard supporters, keeping it real. I think we're all sort of on the same team right now, but I get it. Elizabeth Warren, she's a threat to this whole primary, and if she ends up being the nominee, then she's going to take enough of those, what do they call, TYT progressives with her, those fake progressives that are progressive in name only, okay? Call them Pino, like rhinos, and there's basically no difference, again, between her foreign policy and Mike Pence's foreign policy. That's another reason why this impeaching Trump stuff is a bunch of nonsense that should just stop, regroup, organize, mobilize, put all of your efforts in defeating Trump and his allies, but use logic, use issues, appeal to the American people, be a candidate that speaks truth to power. Don't go along with this military-industrial complex that has manipulated information, quite honestly, and that information I don't believe is trustworthy when it comes to Donald Trump. I just think their goal is to get rid of him, but their goal isn't really to help the country. Because just put it this way, getting rid of Trump doesn't necessarily help the country. You have to have someone who comes in who is there to replace Trump and steer the country in a different direction with good policy ideas. Okay, I know that's tough for people to understand. If you're a Green Bay Packers fan and the Chicago Bears win, how do you beat the Chicago Bears next time? You actually have a better team, and the better team beats the team that won the last time. It's pretty simple. You play harder, you work harder, you have a better organization, you have better ideas and so forth, and then you'll win, okay? Winning on a technicality is really going to be a bitter pill, and especially considering the base, which Trump knows how to fire up, and the media, which gives Trump millions of dollars in free publicity, they'd be more than willing to go along with this because their ratings are going to go up, and the country, though, is going to go down into the crap hole. You know what I'm saying? So let's all just take a breather on attacking Tulsi Gabbard. If you're attacking Tulsi Gabbard because of this, you're not going to get... This is not going to be a perfect process. And if, you want to question Tulsi Gabbard on this, I'm sure she'll be able to answer your questions thoroughly. She won't run away from this, I'm sure. And it is quite concerning, though, now that she is in the next debate, that these attacks have been leveled. So that's it. That's my video. It's been a frustrating day watching this unfold over on Twitter. But what else is new? This is just... This whole run-up to the presidency, I think, should be... They should allow the election, or the election should begin on January 1st, the year that the election is being held. Because this long, endless run-up to me is it's nauseating, it's painful, it's excruciating. It just goes on, and so much can happen in such a long period of time. And I think to keep these candidates going for this long and to keep these debates going, yes, I think the American people are smart enough to pay attention, 6 months before an election and figure out who they want to vote for. The fact that this stuff happens 18 months, sometimes close to 2 years prior to the actual election date, shows that our entire election process is nothing more than just a ratings boon for big tech companies and big media outlets. Anyway, that was a rambling video, but I am done. I will see you all soon.